So what we're going to start with then, as we think about these living components, is one individual. We're going to start with the individual, and we're going to think about a mouse. You call him Martin the mouse. Now, what's Martin actually for? It's a kind of utilitarian question. And basically, Martin's role in life, say he's the equivalent of a 10-year-old human, he hasn't reached sexual maturity yet. His purpose in life basically is to stay alive, to eat enough food so he grows up big and strong and attains the sexual maturity, and so he can reproduce, pass his genetic material on to the next generation. Now, we know, of course, actually, that God is a creature, that a mouse is a creature made by God. So he has in himself meaning and purpose and value. But just talking from a rather ecological perspective, we can say, right, he's got to eat enough. And that becomes a constant trade-off. Martin needs to decide how he's going to optimize his energy intake. So he can think about ways to do that. He might be the kind of mouse that sits under a bush and says, well, I'm happy just eating these low-nutrient seeds under this bush. I'll just stay here. It's safe, I'm warm, I'm dry, I'm not going to get eaten. And I might just about aggregate enough energy to get myself over this threshold. You see, there's an important threshold here. Martin's very small. He has an incredibly rapid metabolism. And he also has a rather high surface area to volume ratio, so he loses heat, which is difficult. So it takes him a lot of energy just to maintain some sort of equilibrium. Now, if he wants to grow big and strong and be competitive reproductively, he needs to actually get beyond that stasis. He needs to get into an energy profit. So that's the danger of taking the safe under the bush option. So the alternative strategy might be, well, I'm going to head out into the world and search for that, I don't know, ham sandwich jackpot, right? Something which is going to be incredibly fruitful and which is worth taking that additional risk. Because if I go out there, I might get cold and wet and die, or I might get eaten, right? So you can see there's this kind of trade-off between how you deal with risk and reward in what you eat. So it's all about feeding strategy. So now, assume that Martin makes it, right? He grows up big and strong, he attains to sexual maturity, he finds mummy mouse and they have baby mouses. Well, now the whole situation changes completely, doesn't it? Actually, rather as it does for humans as well. I have 7 children. So now we go from individual to population. We've gone from one individual mouse up to a population of mice. Now this introduces a whole new set of dynamics. The first issue is that each of those individual mice is still trying to maintain that energy optimization, but they're now trying to do so within this field of, well, possibly collaborators, right? Some species work together to optimize food. So you can think of female lions in a pride of lions. They hunt together to catch meat. But the alternative is, and I think perhaps more commonly is, there's now intra-specific competition. Individuals within a population have to still accumulate a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of food each day, but they're doing so amongst others who are also trying to aggregate that food as well. So we get to a situation where we have a population, each of whom is trying to optimize their individual success, but also, at a certain level, also optimize the success of the population as a whole. So we have what's called population dynamics. And the fundamental population dynamic is the relationship between births and deaths. Now you think of what happens when there's more births than deaths in a population. Obviously the population increases. That's what's been happening in the human population for the last quite a number of 100 years, right? The death rate declined rapidly as medical care got better, and the birth rate for a long time still stayed rather high. So human population increased exponentially. But now over the last few years, the situation's changed completely. We get to a situation where births and deaths are almost starting to balance each other out. And we're about to shift from exponential increase, where we had more and more people having more and more babies, possibly to a stage of exponential decrease, where you have exactly the opposite. You have fewer and fewer people having fewer and fewer babies. So that'll be almost unprecedented in human history, possibly with the exception of the Great Plague, when about half the population of Europe died in a short period of time. So the critical factor here is that within a population of animals, for each breeding pair over their whole lifetime, they only need to successfully have 2 babies that themselves attain to sexual maturity and reproduce.